Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I hope you're all having a fantastic week. Let's just kind of dive right into the slate here. It's a perfect balanced slate in my opinion. Lots of great pitching options, but also a lot of great batting options. It is a Coors Field slate, so we got Cincinnati and Colorado. With two poor pitchers, one of them especially a poor pitcher in his MLB debut who struggles in the minors, going there. So the chalk's going to be in Coors, but there's lots of options outside of that. So let's just kind of dive right in. Here's the sheet. In terms of like the high salary pitchers, so I think I had the cutoff at like 9K, maybe it was like Wheeler here. I do think Wheeler is probably one of my favorite pitchers on the slate. Gets a nice matchup going to San Francisco. The ballpark boost going to San Francisco. Wheeler's got that strikeout upside. He's got like that workhorse upside, going 100 plus pitches constantly. Putting all these things together and then seeing him, 1,800 cheaper than Kershaw and 1,500 cheaper than Gossman. He's probably one of my favorite pitchers in this top tier in terms of like point per dollar and all of that. Right behind him, or even like right next to him, Christian Javier for Houston, going up against the Cubs. Cubs certainly have some injury issues going on with them. I think Nico Horner's still on the IL. Let me check here real quick. Yep, so he's still on the IL. Bellinger's day-to-day. I mean, those are two very key bats for the Cubs. So just kind of increases my interest in Javier even more. And just like Wheeler, he's fairly cheap compared to the rest of the guys at only 9.6K. There's just so many top-end pitching options on this slate. Right behind them, I do have Clayton Kershaw. Just a solid matchup going up against Minnesota. 11K, I mean, that's still, that's a fine price tag for Clayton Kershaw. I do think that there's enough value on this slate where, you should not have any issue trying to jam in Kershaw if you really did want to go that route and, plug him in. I do think that there's even enough value on the slate if you wanted to go with a Kershaw and, a Wheeler combo as, a SP1, SP2. But I do think that there are some mid-tier pitchers that I do have some interest in. Verlander, tough matchup going up against Tampa Bay. Gossman, I mean, honestly, let's start with Verlander. Verlander, tough matchup against Tampa Bay. So I kind of have him ranked fifth in terms of these top tier guys that I do have interest in. Gossman, I have him right behind Kershaw. Gossman's done very well. He's kind of been up and down. You can see he has these ceiling games, and then he bottoms out with some nasty games against Houston and Boston. But he's going up against the Yankees. He put up a 40 burger against the Yankees earlier on the season. There's lots of strikeouts in that lineup. Judge just had 2 home runs last night. He's going to be scary, obviously, but still, the lineup as a whole shouldn't scare you too much. So Gossman, if he goes out there and puts up 30 DK points, I would not be surprised at all. Honestly, it could be expected. So I do have him listed over Verlander, mainly for that reason. If you want to put him over Kershaw, if you want to put him over Javier, fine. There's an argument to be made for, I think, Gossman up to Wheeler to be arguably your favorite play on this slate. Point per dollar wise, though, Montgomery. Going into the mid-tier, I do think Montgomery is probably my favorite point per dollar play on the entire slate. Going up against Milwaukee, only 7.4K. This is a guy we were paying in the 9,000s for just a couple of starts ago. Milwaukee, they really struggle against left-handed pitching. They strike out a lot against right-handed pitching. Just their averages against left-handed pitching are pretty poor. Now, Montgomery's not the safest option, but again, we were paying 9.5K for this guy not too long ago. It's dropped down to 7.4K in a very, very favorable matchup. Point per dollar wise, he might be my favorite play on the entire slate, but he's not the best pitcher on the slate. Obviously, I shouldn't even have to say that. Lugo, I mean, he's fine as well. He's kind of right there with Montgomery in terms of favorite mid-tier plays. After that, I do think there's a little gap between Lugo and then Bieber, Cobb, Herman, all those kind of guys. Bieber, he's fine. He's not the Bieber that we saw, in years past. But I feel like that's kind of the case for a lot of these pitchers. Also, at 9K, I would just rather bump up 200 to go get Wheeler. Cobb, right below him, 8.7K. I don't mind him at all. Induces a lot of ground balls. Going up against Philly, tough matchup, but nice ballpark as well in San Francisco. And Cobb, he's done pretty well over the past handful of starts. 3 of his past 4, 0 earned runs allowed. So Cobb, great option, I do think, but still, paying 1,600 more for him over Montgomery. Boy, I can't do my math, can I? 1,300. I'd rather go with Montgomery at 7.4K. Lynn, speaking of Lynn, there we go. He's 1,600 fewer. I do think that Lynn's probably the one option in the super cheap range that I would have any interest in. I know he's only 300 behind Montgomery, but that's kind of where, the sheet landed with everything with the pricing. But I think Lynn's probably my favorite cheap play. Going up against Cleveland. I've mentioned it before in previous videos. They don't hit a whole lot of home runs. They're a small ball team. They hit singles, they hit doubles, they try to steal bases, all that kind of stuff. And then Lynn's gonna be he's a Wheeler type pitcher in that he's going to go 100 plus pitches pretty much every single start. Yeah, he's gotten shaken up a little bit here in the past, but he went up against Philly, Toronto, Tampa Bay, at Cincinnati in that very small ballpark, at Kansas City in that ballpark that has just been Coors Light essentially. So I do think that Lynn could be a nice value option down there. Everybody else, not really too much interest in them. You can see where we have the no interest, where we have the fades. Stunning Singer, they're just kind of like leftover scraps. If you land on them, but it's whatever. There's kind of leftovers at that point. In terms of the bats, Colorado, they're going to be the favorite team on the slate in terms of implied run total and what to expect from them. They're probably also just going to be popular because it's Coors Field, and they're going up against Williamson. This is going to be his MLB debut. He had 8 starts in AAA, and his ERA was close to 7. So yikes. It's going to be a rough day for him. So Colorado's going to be the favorite stack on the slate. Chris Bryant, he's really struggled as of late. It's just not seeing the ball well. Something's going on. I don't know. But this is definitely a get-right spot for him. The lefty-righty matchup. In Coors, 5.1K. He should smash in this spot. But again, it's baseball. Who knows? After Bryant, guys I would have most interest in would be like Grichuk. 4.1K, throwing him in there, that's super affordable. Any of these guys are too cheap, all things considered. They're just too cheap overall. Doyle, if he is in the lineup, could have a lot of interest in him. He's a super speed guy. If he gets on base, he's going to be taking off and trying to get those stolen bases. So could have some interest in him there. Trejo, Tovar, all these, they're just far too cheap. Diaz, 4.3K. It's just all too cheap on the Colorado side. Cincinnati, they also have some very affordable guys. The 3 guys I would have the most interest in would be India, Fraley, and then min price all the way down here. Where's he at? McLean. Min price, 2K. He had his first start last night. He batted in the 2 spot. So if he's high in the order again, going to have interest. He's going to be very popular at shortstop. There are some other options at shortstop that are going to be pretty popular or could be popular in my opinion. And that kind of leads me into Seattle. Seattle's probably my favorite outside of Coors stack. I take that back. I do like Arizona a little bit more, but I do think that Seattle is going to be a great stack outside of Coors if you do want to change things up a little, maybe get a little bit more contrarian. But speaking of cheap shortstops, just mentioned it. JP Crawford, if he's leading off at 3.3K, could have a lot of interest in a very nice spot going up against Pivetta. Julio Rodriguez, he's been doing a lot better. He's batting 3rd, 4th now in the lineup, so going to have interest in him. And then Kalenic. So Crawford, Julio, and Kalenic probably my top 3 bats in terms of Seattle. Did mention that I do like Arizona and Oakland, both sides of this game. And also, both sides very, very affordable. On the Arizona side of things, Lourdes Gurriel, it's going to be my favorite, one-off if you do want to go one-off from Arizona. But you can kind of see, we're picking up outfielders really, really quickly on this slate. But still, Lourdes Gurriel is probably going to be my favorite there. Rivera, if he's batting high in the lineup, again, going to have a lot of interest in him at only 3K. So, like, it's a super affordable slate. There are so many cheap options that you could be going to where, like, you could jam in a guy like Kershaw and you could jam in a guy like Wheeler and you're still left with 3K remaining. And that's with a guy like Jonathan India at 5.5K. So, but Colorado, Cincinnati, Coors Field, obviously, Seattle, yep, Arizona, Oakland, yep. Texas, Atlanta, I do think that, I don't think, like, Vegas agrees with me. I think this game has the highest or second highest run total on the entire slate, the highest run total on the slate outside of Coors Field. But I don't think that we're probably going to see as much ownership just because of their pricing is a little bit higher up there. But Atlanta is, it's much more difficult in terms of, jamming in their salaries and everything. So they are a little bit more of a GPP play for me there. But I do like Texas. I do like Atlanta if you want to go with either side. St. Louis, their bats have finally started to wake up. 18 runs, I want to say, last night against Milwaukee. So Nolan Arenado, he's hitting home runs again. He's finally back. Whatever was plaguing him at the start of the season, he's back. St. Louis is starting to get the offense back. So when bats are hot, you kind of ride the hot bats. I know you never want a game log watch in MLB. Never do it. Not good. But, it can show, which batters are seeing the ball very well. Maybe have that confidence. And, it actually does go a long way even at the pro level. So this is kind of where, like, the slate's kind of shaken out. That wasn't a core by any means. I was just kind of showing you, it's a very affordable slate just with how much value there is and the cheap options with, like, Arizona and Oakland and even the cheap options on Colorado and Cincinnati in Coors. Lots of ways to go. That's just kind of where I'm heading at this point in time. Obviously, I want to look a little bit more into the slate, research a little bit more. Things are probably going to be shaking around. But yeah, so this is where we are. Thanks for watching. As always, really do appreciate it. As always, good luck in your contests, and we will see you in the next video.